My house collapsed in the middle of the night, not from fire, not from a storm, not even from an earthquake, but because the president of my HOA dug an illegal basement right up against my property line. I barely crawled out alive, covered in dust and blood, and when the smoke cleared instead of help, I found a violation notice stuffed in my mailbox. They fined me for surviving. That's how this all started. I'm Cole Reed, a veteran, a homeowner, and until that night just another quiet neighbor on Pine Hollow Lane. My house wasn't just a house, it was built by my grandfather during the Depression, fortified by my father's hands and cared for by me. 3 generations of Reeds had lived under that roof. The place had scars, sure, but it was solid until the first crack appeared. At first, it was small 6 inches of jagged drywall above my kitchen doorway. But my gut told me something was wrong. Soon after, the porch steps, tilted hairline fractures spread like veins across the side wall, and I could hear the beams groaning at night. I called my old friend Jack, an engineer I'd served with in Afghanistan. He crawled under the house, checked the soil, and when he came back up, his face was pale. "You've got major displacement on the east side," he said. "That's your property line with Karen." Karen Meinhardt, the HOA president, late 50s, tall, stiff posture, smile like a shark's. We'd butted heads before over my flag size, the shade of my shutters, even how I cut my lawn. But nothing that could sink a house. Jack said, "Looks like someone's been digging recently." I didn't want to believe it, but when I walked the perimeter with a flashlight, I saw it a cement mixer, piles of gravel rebar, and behind it all, Karen's backyard. I didn't confront her, not yet. I mounted a trail camera on a maple tree and let it do the watching for me. Over the next week, I collected shot after shot, workers without logos, trucks without plates, men carrying piping and buckets of cement. And right in the middle, Karen herself, arms folded, pointing like a general. She hadn't filed a single permit, not with the county, not with the HOA. She was digging a basement in secret. I told myself to hold steady, keep gathering evidence. But then the ground gave way. It was a Thursday evening when the floor beneath my living room split like thunder. The whole eastern half of my house dropped in on itself. I stumbled, hit the wall, grabbed at the kitchen counter as the dining room caved into a crater. Family photos shattered. 70 years of history gone in a roar. I clawed my way to the yard, bleeding, dazed, and when I looked across the fence, Karen was standing there watching me. No shock, no sympathy, just that tight smile. The next morning, as firefighters marked my home structurally unsafe, a young deputy handed me his card. And then, right on cue, the HOA delivered a gold-sealed violation letter, "Unsafe structure on Lot 42B. Immediate removal of debris required. $500 per day." Fine. I laughed out loud. My house had collapsed because of their president's illegal construction, and they had the nerve to fine me for it. That laugh, bitter and sharp, was the moment I knew this wasn't incompetence. This was war. But war takes a toll. That night, I sat in the ruins wrapped in a blanket, staring at the wreckage. For the first time since combat, I felt powerless. I actually thought about walking away, letting them win, telling myself maybe Karen was right. Maybe the house was old. Maybe it would have fallen eventually. Maybe I was fighting a ghost. That doubt nearly swallowed me whole. Until Jack showed up with his tool belt and said, "Don't fold now, Cole. You didn't fold out there. Don't fold here." He was right. I had fought harder battles, and I wasn't about to let an HOA president erase me. So I dug in. I went to the county planning office with photos in hand. No permits existed, not even a soil survey. The clerk looked at me wide-eyed and said, "Sir, that's a serious violation." I passed everything to a county inspector named David, who told me not to tip my hand, to let them investigate cold. Meanwhile, Karen doubled down. Another notice appeared in my mailbox, this time demanding I vacate the property entirely. She even had the gall to stand at the fence with her smoothie and say, "Looks like you should have torn that place down years ago." I didn't take the bait. I snapped her photo instead. She slammed her door. That's when I decided to fight her on her own battlefield public opinion. I launched a website, HOAjustice.com, and uploaded every photo, every video, every violation notice. Neighbors started sending me their own stories. Karen had fined a man for repainting his door too bright, threatened a family over wind chimes, confiscated kids' bikes. I realized my house wasn't the first casualty, just the loudest. The site spread like wildfire. Then came the county inspectors. Black SUVs pulled up outside Karen's house one morning. 3 men with clipboards flashed badges. I watched from my driveway as Karen opened her door in a robe, smiling until she realized who they were. Her face cracked when they probed her yard and found the disturbed soil she'd tried to hide. She flailed, pointing, protesting, but they weren't listening. For the first time, Karen panicked, and I enjoyed every second. But HOA tyrants don't surrender. That afternoon, I received an eviction demand claiming my collapsed house was an aesthetic hazard. They gave me 72 hours to clear the lot or forfeit it. Jack cursed out loud, but I saw the play. They wanted me gone before the truth fully surfaced. That night, I pulled out my grandfather's deed and my military files, ran soil calculations with Jack, and wrote a rebuttal citing every civil code violation Karen had committed. Then I did something bolder. I called my son, who I hadn't leaned on in years, and asked him to help build a website that could shine a floodlight on all of this. He said yes, without hesitation. The turning point came at the next HOA assembly. Thanks to a legal loophole, I secured 10 minutes to speak. I wore my old uniform not out of vanity, but to remind them who I was. I stood at the podium in front of 60 residents and laid it all out. The cracks, the photos, the collapse, the fines, the eviction threats. I projected images of Karen directing workers, played audio of her saying, "Hurry before the inspector shows up." And then I told them I nearly died in that house. I was fined for surviving. And I will not leave the land where my family lived for 3 generations because one woman decided she was above the law. The room erupted in applause. Neighbors stood one by one. Karen sat there, face pale, neck brace crooked, unable to meet my eyes. That was the moment the tide shifted. A few days later, an anonymous envelope appeared on my shed. Inside were schematics of Karen's basement plans dated weeks before the collapse, with one section highlighted in red, "Do not extend beyond line B." Soil instability risk. And where did she build? Right past line B. She had been warned. She ignored it. I handed the blueprints to County Inspector Deborah Lynn. She scanned them, whistled, and said, "This isn't just negligence, this is reckless disregard." She slapped a cease and desist on Karen's front door that afternoon. From there, her empire crumbled fast. Board members resigned. The HOA's insurance company cut ties, refusing coverage for undisclosed construction. Neighbors turned on her. At a county courthouse hearing, I testified with binders of evidence, and Deborah confirmed under oath that Karen's basement had trespassed under my property. When the chairperson asked Karen if she wanted to respond, she opened her mouth, and nothing came out. Just silence. That silence was louder than any scream. The inspectors dug up her yard days later and found the illegal beam stretching under my foundation. That was the nail in the coffin. Karen was cited for structural trespass code violations and reckless endangerment. The HOA itself faced lawsuits. And I stood on my lot, arms crossed, watching her finally pack up and drive away, sunglasses hiding her eyes, her kingdom of fear reduced to rubble. That's where my story ends. Not with a celebration, not with champagne, but with the sight of an empire of control collapsing under its own lies. Karen thought she could bury the truth under concrete. Instead, she buried herself. And the lesson is simple. When power is abused, silence only feeds it. But the moment you stand, the moment you speak, their empire begins to crack.